I still remember the moment my heart slipped out of my chest. My son's mother-in-law's car was sitting in my driveway, and somehow, without even stepping inside, I knew something was wrong. It's frightening how 30 years of love can collapse in less than half a minute. My name is Mary Thompson. I'm 58, and what you're about to hear is the story I never imagined I'd be forced to live, let alone tell. Before I continue, if stories like this resonate with you, real stories about real women rebuilding their lives, make sure you subscribe. And while you listen, tell me the name of your city in the comments. I want to know how far my voice reaches. I can still smell coffee when I think back to that afternoon. Maybe because coffee was the rhythm of our mornings, or maybe because that scent no longer belongs in my kitchen. It started when I traveled to Phoenix. My sister Sophia had fallen ill and needed me for a week. Robert, my husband, insisted I go. "Take your time, Mary, your sister needs you. I'll handle things here," he told me. After 3 decades of marriage, trust becomes second nature or blindness disguised as love. I didn't question him. I never did. By the third night in Phoenix, a strange heaviness clung to me. My sister was improving, she had help, but I couldn't shake the feeling twisting in my chest. Something was pulling me back home. I caught the first morning bus without telling Robert. I wanted to surprise him, maybe take him to breakfast at his favorite diner, or cook his favorite pot roast. The thought actually made me smile, then a smile I would never wear again the same way. I got home around noon. The sun was sharp, the street quiet. And then I saw it, a gray Volkswagen Jetta. I knew that car. Margaret's car. Margaret Miller, my son David's mother-in-law. My daughter-in-law Lucy's mother. Why was her car at my house? I froze at the gate. My pulse thudded so loudly I could hear it echoing inside my ears. Maybe she was dropping something off. Maybe she needed Robert's help with the grandkids. Maybe. I opened the front door carefully. The house was unnervingly silent. I stepped upstairs slowly. The hardwood creaked under my feet, and then from my bedroom, laughter. A woman's laugh and Robert's. I stopped cold in the hallway. The door was slightly open. Part of me wanted to run. The other part, the part that already knew, pushed my hand toward the door. I opened it. And my world split in two. Robert stood beside the bed, two open suitcases laid out, his clothes folded neatly inside, shirts, pants, even the shoes I bought him last Christmas. And beside him, holding one of his blouses as if it belonged to her, was Margaret. They both turned toward me. Neither spoke. I couldn't either. My breath disappeared. My voice dried up. All I could do was stare. In that suffocating silence, the truth hit me harder than any scream could have. Everything I thought was solid wasn't. Everything I believed in shattered. Sometimes the people we trust most are the ones who break us deepest. Have you ever been betrayed by someone you loved? Share your story in the comments, I want to hear you. But before I tell you what happened in that room, you need to know who we were. Robert and I met in 1985. I was 25, working in an office supply store downtown. He came in every Friday for envelopes, always smiling, always gentle. One day he finally asked me out for coffee, and that coffee became 30 years of a life I thought was unbreakable. We married on a rainy May 18th. My mother said rain meant good luck. I believed her. Robert worked as an accountant. He wasn't the romantic type, but he was steady. He came home every night. He read the newspaper while I made strong black coffee and plated his bagel or his donut. He would glance at me sometimes and say, "Mary, I don't need much. This is enough for me." And I believed that too. We raised our son David together, watched him graduate, watched him marry sweet Lucy, Margaret's daughter. Margaret had been widowed young and raised Lucy alone. I admired her strength. I thought we had bonded over being family women who held everything together. How ironic that I trusted the very woman who was ripping my life apart behind my back. Looking back, I now see the signs that were there, faint, almost invisible. 2 years before everything collapsed, Robert began coming home early some days, distant, quiet, as if he were thinking of someplace else or someone else. He started going out more often. Margaret needs help with repairs, or she's nervous going to the bank alone. And I, foolishly loyal, waved him off with a smile. At night I would ask, "Are you okay, Robert?" And he'd always answer, "Yes, Mary, I'm fine," with a voice that felt miles away. One moment stands out clearly now, my grandson Sebastian's 5th birthday party. A house full of kids, balloons, the smell of barbecue, and laughter everywhere. But in the middle of all that joy, something shifted. I had stepped out of the bathroom and paused by the hallway when I heard two voices in the living room, soft, low, secretive. "We can't keep going like this," Margaret murmured. "I know," Robert whispered back. "It's just not the right time yet." A beat of silence. "I'm tired of waiting," she said. "Just give me a little more time, please." My heart pounded. My palms went cold. I wanted to pretend I hadn't heard anything, and so I did. I returned to the kitchen, plastered on a smile, and lied to myself again. That night when we got home, I asked him about it. He brushed it off with an easy smile. She wanted advice on an investment. He even kissed my forehead to seal the lie, and I let myself believe him, because believing the lie was easier than facing the truth. But from that day on, something inside me cracked. A tiny fracture. One that would eventually split my whole world open. The phone calls kept coming, and every time they did, I forced myself to swallow the doubt building inside me. "Who was it?" I'd ask Robert. "Work," he'd say, the same answer, the same tone, the same tiny crack forming inside me. One Saturday morning, while he showered, his phone lit up on the kitchen table. I was whisking eggs for breakfast when I saw the name flash on the screen. Margaret. It rang once, twice again, 5 times in a row. I didn't touch the phone. I just stared at it until the call stopped, until the silence felt louder than the ringing. When Robert came out of the bathroom, I told him, "Margaret called you." "Oh, right," he said quickly. "Probably something about Lucy's gift. I'll call her back." Another excuse. There was always an excuse, and I always accepted them, even when my heart didn't. But the fracture inside me was spreading. A few days later, while I was cleaning Robert's car, I found a receipt tucked between the seats. A receipt from a flower shop. 12 red roses. I hadn't gotten flowers from him in years. That night I waited until after dinner and asked calmly, "Who were the flowers for?" His face didn't even change. "For the secretary at the office. It was her birthday, we all pitched in." I slipped the receipt into my purse and said nothing else. But that night, sleep didn't come. I lay there staring at the ceiling while Robert breathed peacefully next to me. And I wondered if I was imagining everything or finally seeing the truth. Months dragged on. The distance between us turned into a silent wall. We stopped drinking our morning coffee together. He left early, came home late. Busy season. "A lot of work," was all he'd say. I stopped asking questions. I wasn't sure I wanted the answers. I filled my days with anything that kept my mind from spiraling, my friends, my grandchildren, my afternoon soap operas. But something inside me was fading. The day I planned the trip to Phoenix to help Sophia, I noticed something in Robert's eyes. Something I had seen before but couldn't name until that moment, relief. "Go ahead, Mary. I'll take care of things here," he said, almost too quickly. And I left, blind, trusting, unaware that nothing would be the same when I returned. Sometimes we ignore the signs because acknowledging them hurts too much. Have you ever felt something was wrong but chose not to ask? Tell me in the comments. There's something no one tells you about emotional pain. You can live with it silently for months without realizing how much it's consuming you. I walked through those months like a ghost, smiling when I needed to smile, cooking, cleaning, ironing, playing the role of the good wife, while inside I was falling apart. Admitting something was wrong meant losing everything. Losing Robert. Losing the life I built over 3 decades. Losing the version of myself who believed she was loved. So I pretended. Until one afternoon, 2 months before my Phoenix trip, when I ran into my best friend Estelle at the grocery store. "Mary," she said, but her expression wasn't warm, it was troubled. "What's wrong?" I asked immediately. She hesitated, then pulled me away from the produce aisle. "I don't know if I should say anything, but I saw Robert the other day." My stomach tightened. "Where?" "At that Italian restaurant near the mall. He was with a woman." "A woman." My hands went cold. "Maybe a coworker," I said, forcing a smile I didn't feel. "Robert meets with a lot of people." Estelle looked at me with the kind of pity that slices right through your ribs. "Maybe, Mary, just be careful." She hugged me and left, and I stood there gripping grocery bags with hands that felt numb. I said nothing to Robert that night. I cooked chicken pot pie, his favorite. He talked about traffic, work, clients. I nodded, I smiled, I pretended not to be breaking. But inside, I was screaming. Who was she? Why hadn't he told me? Why did he hide it? I could have asked, I should have asked. But fear kept me silent. In the days that followed, I questioned everything. Every time he left the house, I wondered, who is he really going to see? Who is he when he's not here? I started checking his shirts for perfume, his collars for lipstick, his car for stray hairs or receipts. Nothing. Robert was too careful. One night while he slept, I took his phone from the nightstand. My hands shook. He had a password. He never had a password before. I placed the phone back exactly where it was and cried silently, facing away from him so he wouldn't hear. The next morning, I made coffee like always. Robert came downstairs and kissed my cheek. Good morning, Mary. Good morning. I sat across from him and asked, Robert, are you happy with me? He looked up, surprised. What kind of question is that? I don't know, I whispered. It just feels like we're not us anymore, like you're distant. He didn't answer right away. Then he smiled, that same gentle, practiced smile. I'm just tired, Mary. Work is stressful. Everything is fine between us. Are you sure? Of course. He took my hand across the table. You're my wife, you always will be. And I believed him. I had to, because the alternative was unbearable. Weeks dragged on. I lost myself little by little. I stopped dressing up, stopped caring, stopped feeling like the woman I once was. My sisters asked me to go out. My friends checked in. I always had an excuse. I isolated myself without even noticing it. Until Sophia called. Mary, I need you. I'm very sick. Please come. Of course, sis, I'll be there. I expected Robert to ask me to stay, to say he'd miss me, to show something. But he didn't. Go easy. I'll handle things here. And again, in his eyes, relief. That afternoon, I packed my suitcase. When I paused in the bedroom doorway, I stared at our bed, the pictures on the wall, the years of memories staring back at me. It felt like a farewell, even though I didn't yet know what I was losing. Robert drove me to the bus station. He kissed my forehead. Take care, Mary. You too. I watched him walk away as the bus pulled out of the terminal. And a cold, terrifying thought hit me. What if, when I return, there's nothing left to return to? I tried to push it away. But deep inside, I knew something was waiting for me back home. Something I wasn't ready to face. Something that would change everything. And I was right. But when the bus finally pulled into the terminal, the moment my feet touched the ground, a strange heaviness settled in my chest. I grabbed a taxi, and the closer we got to my neighborhood, the tighter that pressure became. By the time the car turned onto my street, my heart was beating so hard I could feel it in my throat. And then I saw it. That same gray Volkswagen Jetta sitting in my driveway. I didn't need anyone to explain it. I didn't need proof. That one sight was enough for every fear I had buried to rise to the surface. Everything I had been denying, everything I pushed away, it all stood there in front of me like a warning sign I could no longer pretend wasn't real. As I tell all this, I keep wondering where you might be listening from. Drop your city name in the comments. I want to know how far my voice reaches. I stood at the gate for a moment, trying to breathe, trying to steady my hands. But my legs moved on their own. I pushed the door open and walked inside. The house was silent, too silent. I climbed the stairs slowly, feeling every inch of the wooden floor beneath my feet. And when I reached the hallway, when I saw that my bedroom door was slightly open, I knew. I just knew. There are moments in life that freeze forever in your memory, moments that carve themselves into your skin like scars. This was one of those moments. I pushed the door wider. Robert was standing by the bed, his face pale, his eyes wide. Two open suitcases sat on the comforter. His shirts were folded neatly, his pants, his shoes. His life packed up in two boxes. And beside him, holding one of his blue shirts, the one I ironed just days ago, stood Margaret. Margaret Miller. The woman who sat at my table. The woman who drank coffee with me. The grandmother of my grandchildren. Neither of them spoke. Neither moved. It was Margaret who finally whispered, Mary, but even she couldn't finish. Because there were no words that could clean up that scene. My voice barely came out. What is happening here? Robert lowered his gaze. He let out a long, deep sigh as if he had been waiting for this moment, as if he were relieved it had finally come. "Sit down, Mary," he said. "No," I replied shakily. "Tell me what's going on. Why is she here? Why are you packing your things?" Margaret slowly placed the shirt on the bed. Her face was trembling, she looked guilty, scared. I should go," she murmured. "No," I said sharply. "You're staying right here. Both of you owe me answers." Robert ran a hand through his hair, his nervous gesture. The gesture he used when he was about to make a decision he knew would hurt someone. "Mary, this wasn't supposed to happen like this. I was going to talk to you, I was going to explain everything." "But," I snapped. "But what, Robert? I left for a few days, and you chose this moment to do, whatever this is." He looked up, and his eyes had something I had never seen before. A cold determination that made my stomach twist. "Mary Margaret and I have been seeing each other." The world didn't just stop, it shattered. "Seeing each other," I repeated. "What does that mean?" "It means we're in a relationship." My legs nearly gave out. I held the door frame to steady myself. "A relationship," I whispered. "Since when?" Silence. And then Margaret spoke, her voice barely audible. 2 years, 2 years, 2 years." The words slammed into me like a punch. "You've been with my husband's mother-in-law for 2 years." My voice cracked, shaking with disbelief. 2 years and I knew nothing." Robert swallowed hard. "I wanted to tell you sooner, I didn't know how." I laughed, a hollow, broken laugh. "You didn't want to hurt me, and you think this doesn't hurt me." He said nothing. I turned to Margaret. "You came into my home. You hugged me, you shared coffee with me, and all the while you were betraying me. How could you?" Her eyes filled with tears. "I'm sorry, Mary, I didn't plan for this." "Nothing just happens, Margaret. Betrayal doesn't just happen, you have to choose it." Robert stepped forward slightly. "Mary, don't talk to her like that. If anyone is to blame, it's me." My jaw dropped. "You're defending her?" I asked in disbelief. "Her, not me. Not your wife of 30 years. "I made the decision," he said quietly. "I started everything." "What about our marriage, Robert? Our life, our family?" He breathed out heavily. "Mary, our marriage stopped working a long time ago." Those words hit me harder than the confession. "What?" I whispered. "We haven't been happy, Mary, you know that, we've just been existing." "I was happy," I cried. "I was happy with you, but I wasn't." Silence filled the room, thick, suffocating silence. "So, what now?" I finally asked. "You're leaving with her?" Robert nodded. "Yes." "When?" "Today, that's why I was packing. I was going to leave you a letter." "A letter," I repeated. 30 years of marriage and you were going to leave me a letter." "Mary, don't say my name." I wiped my face with shaking hands. "Do you love her?" Robert looked at Margaret. The softness in his eyes toward her felt like a knife in my chest. "Yes," he said, "I love her." The final blow. My voice came out steady, surprisingly steady. "I want both of you out of my house. Now." They finished packing quickly, too quickly, like they had rehearsed it. I followed them downstairs, each step heavier than the last. They walked through the front door. Robert turned as if he wanted to say something. I raised my hand. "Just leave." And they left. I watched the gray Jetta roll away, taking my husband, my marriage, my life as I knew it. I closed the door. I slid down onto the floor. And there, in the quiet hallway of the home I had built with my own hands, I cried until my body couldn't take it anymore. Hours passed. When I finally stood up, exhausted and broken, I walked back to the bedroom. The bed looked foreign. The closet looked empty. And on the pillow, a white envelope with my name. The letter. The goodbye he planned to leave behind like an afterthought. My hands shook as I opened it. "Dear Mary, I know this is going to hurt you." And as I read his words, his excuses, his reasons, every memory of our life together burned inside me like fire. "I hope that someday you can forgive me." Robert, I must have read that line a dozen times. And with every reread, something inside me boiled hotter. Forgive him. He wanted forgiveness. After everything he had done. I ripped the letter into tiny pieces, let them fall like snow onto the bedroom floor, and stood there shaking. The room still smelled like his cologne, faint, familiar, and suddenly unbearable. In that moment, surrounded by the remains of his apology, I made myself a promise. I would never allow another soul to make me feel that small again, that invisible, that foolish. Sometimes I still ask myself, did I do the right thing by letting them go without a fight? And you, what would you have done? The first days after Robert left were the darkest days I've ever lived. I didn't eat. I barely slept. I wandered around the house like a shadow, touching the walls, looking at old photos, asking myself how everything had collapsed so fast. 30 years of marriage, and I was left alone with silence so heavy it felt like another person in the room. Even when Robert and I weren't talking, his presence had always been there. The sound of his keys, the creak of his shoes on the stairs, the rustle of his newspaper. Now there was nothing. Only me and the echo of my own breathing. On the third day the phone rang. It was David. "Mom, is it true?" His voice sounded broken. "What is true, son?" "What Lucy told me, that Dad left, that he's with Lucy's mother." I closed my eyes. Even speaking the truth out loud made my chest tighten. "Yes, son, it's true." I heard him choke back a sob. "Dad wouldn't do this. He loves us. He loves all of us." "I know, David," I whispered. "I thought so too." He asked what happened when it started, how it unfolded. So I told him everything. Sebastian's birthday party, my suspicions, the morning I returned from Phoenix, finding them in my bedroom. David barely said a word. I could hear him crying softly, trying to hide it. "Mom, I didn't know anything, I swear." "I know, son, none of this is your fault." "How's Lucy?" I asked. "Destroyed," he said. "She can't believe her mother did this. She says she feels ashamed, betrayed." My heart ached for Lucy. She didn't deserve this burden. "Tell her this isn't on her," I said. "Tell her I don't blame her." "And Dad?" David whispered. "Do you blame him?" The question caught me off guard. I let out a shaky breath. "I don't know, son. I don't know yet. I'm just trying to survive." "Can I come over?" "Not yet," I said softly. "I need a little time alone." "Mom, I don't want you to be alone." "I'll be okay, I promise." We hung up, and I was back in the silence of a house that suddenly felt too big for one person. Days turned into weeks. I still couldn't bring myself to leave the house. My sisters called. My friends knocked on the door, but I didn't answer. I didn't want them seeing me like that, hollow, drained, barely functioning. One afternoon, I went into Robert's closet, thinking maybe cleaning would distract me. I opened the doors and began removing old shirts and jackets. When I reached the back, I found a shoebox tucked behind some sweaters. Inside were letters. Handwritten letters, dozens of them, all from Margaret. My breath caught in my throat. I pulled them out one by one, each one tainted with affection that did not belong to her. Love letters. Letters where she poured her heart out to Robert. Letters where she talked about their future. Letters where she dreamed of the moment they could be together openly. Some were dated 2 years ago. Some 1 year ago. Some only a couple of months old. In one she wrote, "My love, I know Mary doesn't deserve this, but we deserve happiness too. Life is too short to hide. Soon, my love, soon we'll be together." I stared at that line. She knew. She knew exactly what she was doing. And she did it anyway. Another letter, a particularly cruel one, read, "It's so hard to watch you at family gatherings. To see Mary serve you coffee with that trusting smile, knowing that you're thinking of me. Tell me you think about me when you're with her." I felt sick. All those times Margaret came into my home, all those conversations, all that trust I gave her, and she was imagining herself in my place. She was stealing glances with my husband behind my back. I put the letters back in the box and shoved it in the closet. I didn't want to see them again, but I couldn't throw them out either. They were evidence of the truth, evidence of a betrayal that had been happening right under my nose for 2 whole years. That night, sleep refused to come. I stared at the ceiling, replaying everything. And then a memory hit me. Mother's Day lunch. 1 year earlier, the whole family was there. I cooked turkey and mashed potatoes, Robert's favorite meal. I remember laughing, passing plates around, feeling my heart full. And then I saw it, a moment that lasted no more than a second. Across the table, Robert and Margaret shared a look. Complicity, desire, a secret. I shrugged it off back then. Told myself I was imagining things, but I wasn't. It had been real, and I ignored it. I climbed out of bed, went to the kitchen, and made tea to steady my hands. I sat alone at the same table where we had shared thousands of mornings together. And suddenly, the tears came again. Because this time, I wasn't crying for Robert. I was crying for me, for the woman who trusted, for the woman who believed, for the woman who loved unconditionally. That woman was gone, and I didn't know who I was without her. A month passed. Slowly, very slowly, I forced myself back into the world. First a trip to the grocery store, then a visit to church, then to my sister's. Everywhere I went, I felt eyes on me, whispering, judging poor Mary. Her husband left her for her daughter-in-law's mother. What a scandal. But I kept my head high because even though I was breaking inside, I refused to show it. One day at the grocery store, I felt a hand on my shoulder. It was Estelle. "How are you?" she asked gently. "I'm fine," I lied. She gave me a look that cut right through the lie. "Mary, you don't have to pretend with me." Right there in the middle of the produce aisle, I broke. Estelle pulled me into her arms and held me while I cried. Then she took me to a cafe and listened, really listened, as I poured out everything. When I was done, she squeezed my hand. "Mary, you may not want to hear this, but I'm going to say it anyway. Robert doesn't deserve your tears. He made his choice. Now he has to live with it." "But I loved him," I whispered. "I still do." "I know, and that's why it hurts." But love isn't enough when the other person has already left. I asked her how I was supposed to move forward. "You remember who you were before him," she said. "Because Mary Thompson didn't begin with Robert, and she won't end with him." Her words stayed in my heart. That night, I stood in front of the mirror for the first time in weeks. I saw a tired, aging woman, but I also saw someone who had survived the unthinkable. And right then, I made a decision. I wasn't going to let this destroy me. I wasn't going to let Robert and Margaret take away my dignity. They had already taken my marriage, my plans, my sense of safety, but they were not going to take me. That was the one thing I still had control over, the one thing they could not break unless I let them. So I changed things. I cut my hair, shorter than I ever had it. I bought a few new outfits that made me feel like I was rediscovering the woman I had hidden for years. I began taking morning walks, tending to my neglected garden, and finally reading the books I had bought over time and never opened. Slowly, the house stopped feeling like a graveyard of memories. It started feeling like a place where I could begin again. But just when the fog around me began to lift, just when I felt the smallest spark of peace, the phone rang, snatching the air out of my lungs. It was David. "Mom, I need you to come over. It's urgent." My heart tightened. "What is it, son?" "It's about Dad and Margaret. There's something you need to know, something that changes everything." My stomach dropped. "David, what is going on?" "I can't tell you over the phone. Just come, please." He hung up before I could ask anything else. I stood there in the middle of the living room, gripping the phone so tightly my knuckles went white. What could possibly be left? What more could they have done to me? I grabbed my keys, walked out, and drove toward David's house. With every traffic light, my anxiety climbed higher. Every second felt like a year. My thoughts spun wildly. Was Robert sick? Were they getting married? Had they lied about the timeline? Each thought was worse than the one before it. When I finally pulled into David's driveway, both his car and Lucy's were there. The living room lights glowed through the curtains. My hands shook as I rang the doorbell. David opened the door. His eyes were swollen, his face pale. Before I could say a word, he hugged me tightly. "Mom," I stepped into the house and saw Lucy sitting on the sofa. Her eyes were red, too. The moment she saw me, she stood and rushed into my arms. "Mrs. Mary, I'm so sorry, so sorry." I hugged her back. That poor girl. She hadn't done anything wrong, yet she was carrying the shame of her mother's choices like a weight on her shoulders. "It's okay, honey," I whispered. "You're not to blame for any of this." The three of us sat down. A silence filled the room so thick it nearly suffocated me. Finally, I spoke. "All right, what is it? What happened?" David and Lucy exchanged a look, both terrified to say the words. Then Lucy took a shaky breath. "Mrs. Mary, I went to see my mother." Her voice cracked. David squeezed her hand. "I know I said I didn't want to see her," she continued, "and I am angry, but she's my mom. I needed to understand why she did it." I nodded. I knew that feeling, that desperate need for answers. "And what did she tell you?" I asked quietly. Tears slid down Lucy's cheeks. "She told me she fell in love with Mr. Robert about 2 years ago, that she tried to stop it at first, that she knew it was wrong but she couldn't help it." A sharp pain hit my chest, but I stayed silent. "She also told me Mr. Robert loved her too," Lucy went on. She said he told her that his marriage to you was already dead, that there was no love left, that he was only staying out of habit. Robert's words from the letter rang in my mind like a knife twisting. Our marriage stopped working a long time ago. Lucy wiped her tears, but that's not the worst part. I opened my eyes wide. What else? Lucy swallowed hard. My mother told me she was the one who started everything. I stared at her. What do you mean? She admitted she seduced Mr. Robert. She chased after him, she pursued him. It wasn't something that just happened. I felt the room tilt beneath me. What? I whispered. David spoke through clenched teeth. Mom, Lucy's trying to say Margaret planned it, from the beginning. My mind spun. Why would she do that? Lucy sobbed. Because she was terrified of being alone. After my father died, she felt invisible, old, and then she saw Mr. Robert. My stomach twisted. Are you saying she deliberately set her sights on my husband? Lucy nodded painfully. Yes. She told me she admired the way he treated you, the way he acted with the family, and she began fantasizing about having that for herself. I felt sick to my core. Lucy continued. She started asking him for help, repairs, errands, advice. I remembered every time Robert had left the house to help Margaret. Every time I hadn't questioned it. David's voice shook with anger. She manipulated him for almost a year. Playing the victim, pretending she needed him, making him believe you didn't value him anymore. Oh my God, I whispered. Lucy nodded. After almost a year of that, he finally gave in. I stared at the floor, numb. Margaret wasn't just the woman Robert cheated with. She was the mastermind, the architect of my heartbreak, but David wasn't finished. There's more, Mom. I looked at him, exhausted. What else could there possibly be? Lucy lowered her gaze. When I went to see my mother, she was living in a luxury apartment. I asked how she paid for it. My heart dropped. She said Mr. Robert helps her. I couldn't breathe. Robert is paying for her apartment, David added, her car, her credit cards, everything. My blood ran cold. With what money? I demanded. Robert doesn't make that much. We've always been careful, I stopped. 6 months ago, Robert told me we needed to tighten the budget. That things were tight. And I believed him. Mom, David said gently, I checked the accounts. Dad has been transferring money to Margaret for over a year. How much? I whispered. A lot. I felt nauseous. That money was ours, for our future, our family, and he was giving it to her. David swallowed. There's something else, Mom. I don't know if I can take more, I muttered through tears. You need to hear this, he said firmly. Dad and Margaret are planning to leave the country. My world froze solid. What? Lucy nodded. I overheard my mom talking to a travel agency. They're planning to move to Italy in 2 months. Italy, I repeated, stunned. Yes, Lucy continued. They want to sell her apartment, take the money, and leave. Start a new life where no one knows them. I stood abruptly. I couldn't sit. I couldn't breathe. I paced the room, hands trembling. All this time, I said aloud. All this time I thought Robert made a mistake, that he fell in love, that it just happened. My voice rose, shaking. But this was planned, calculated. He knew exactly what he was doing. Tears blurred my vision. He stole from me, I screamed. He stole our money, he stole our years, he stole my trust. He stole my life. David stood and hugged me tightly. I was shaking uncontrollably. What am I supposed to do with all this? I cried into his shoulder. Whatever you decide, Mom, he whispered. We're with you. Lucy approached and gently took my hand, her voice trembling. I'm so sorry, Mrs. Mary, so sorry. Lucy reached for my hand. Her voice was barely steady when she said, Mrs. Mary, I know what my mother did is unforgivable, and if you decide you don't want to see me anymore, I will understand. I looked into her eyes. In them, I saw a reflection of my own pain, my own shock, my own heartbreak. The betrayal she felt wasn't any smaller than mine. You are not your mother, Lucy, I told her gently. None of this is your fault, and I will never blame you for what she chose to do. The moment those words left my mouth, Lucy broke down. I pulled her into my arms, and she cried against my shoulder. Then David wrapped his arms around both of us, and there we stood, the three of us holding on to each other because that's what family does. Even when everything around you is falling apart, family becomes the only place you don't collapse. I stayed at David's house that night. I couldn't go home. I couldn't sit in that empty house with those memories crushing me from all sides. I lay down in the guest room, but sleep never came. My mind kept replaying everything I had just learned. Margaret plotting from the beginning, Robert stealing from me, their plans to run away to Italy. And me, left behind like an abandoned suitcase no one wanted to claim. But then a memory surfaced. Something my mother had told me when I was a little girl, after I fell off my bike and scraped my knees. Mary, life will knock you down many times. But the important thing isn't how many times you fall, it's how many times you get up. I got out of bed. I walked quietly to the kitchen. I poured myself a glass of water and stood there in the dark, listening to the hum of the refrigerator, feeling the cold tile under my feet. And right there, in that unfamiliar kitchen, I made a choice. I wasn't going to let Robert and Margaret walk away clean. I wasn't going to let them steal from me, lie to me, and then run away across the world like I didn't matter. I wasn't going to be their silent casualty. I didn't know what I would do yet, but I knew I would do something. The next morning, David was already up, making coffee. He looked exhausted. "Good morning, Mom. Did you sleep?" he asked. "No," I answered honestly, "but I'm okay." I sat at the table. David placed a cup in front of me. "Mom," he said softly, "I'm going to talk to Dad. I'm going to tell him what he's doing is wrong." "No," I said firmly, cutting him off. "Not yet." "Why?" he asked, confused. "Because I need to think. I need to decide how I'm going to handle this. And once I decide, once I'm ready, then you can talk to him." He stared at me, trying to understand. "Mom, what are you planning?" I felt a sad, determined smile forming. "I'm planning to take back my life, David. I'm planning to take back my dignity." "And how are you going to do that?" "I don't know yet," I admitted. "But I will figure it out." I stayed with David and Lucy for 2 more days. During those days, my mind worked nonstop. I thought about confronting Robert again, but what was the point? He had made his choice. I thought about confronting Margaret, but she had already shown who she was. A woman who wanted what she wanted, no matter who she crushed along the way. I even thought about hiring a lawyer, fighting for the money, exposing everything they had done. But then something settled inside me. Revenge wouldn't give me peace. Revenge would tie me to them forever, and I didn't want that. I didn't want them in my mind, in my heart, in my future. I wanted peace. And peace had to come from within me. The anger, the bitterness, if I kept carrying all of that, I would destroy myself. And I refused to let Robert and Margaret take anything more from me, not my future, not my happiness, not my peace. When I finally returned home, I paused in the doorway. Everything looked the same, but I wasn't the same anymore. I went upstairs. I opened Robert's closet. I removed every piece of clothing he had left behind. One by one, I put them into bags. I went to the garage, found old boxes, and filled them with the rest of his things, his books, his CDs, photos, everything that belonged to him. When I was done, I called David. "Son, come over. I need your help moving some things." "What things?" "Your father's things," I said calmly. "I'm sending them to him wherever he's living now." There was a pause on the phone. "Mom, are you sure?" "I've never been more sure." David came with his truck. Together, we loaded everything. Every box, every bag, every trace of Robert Thompson left my house that day. And when David closed the truck door, I felt like I could finally breathe. "Mom," he said softly, "I'm proud of you." "Why?" "Because you're choosing strength, because you're choosing yourself." I hugged him tightly. "Thank you, son, for being the man your father should have been." When he left, the house felt empty, but not heavy. Not anymore. I walked through each room, touched the walls, looked at the shadows and the empty spaces, and for the first time, those empty spaces didn't feel sad. They felt like possibilities. A life without him wasn't a punishment, it was a second chance. That night, I slept better than I had in months. When I woke up the next morning, the sunlight coming through my window felt different, warmer, brighter, almost like a whisper from the universe saying, "Go on, Mary, you haven't reached the end, you're just getting started." I still wonder if I did the right thing by not fighting for him harder. And you, what would you have done in my place? 3 months passed since I cleared Robert's belongings from the house. 3 months in which my life changed in ways I never saw coming. The beginning was hard. Very hard. There were mornings when I would wake up and for a split second forget Robert wasn't there. I'd reach for his side of the bed and feel nothing but cold sheets. Those were the worst days. But slowly, painfully, I adjusted. I started doing things I had stopped doing long ago, tiny things that reminded me I was still alive. I signed up for ballroom dance classes, something I always wanted to do but Robert dismissed as silly at our age. I started painting. Nothing good, nothing professional, but watching colors blend on a canvas soothed my soul. I began reconnecting with old friends, Estelle and the women I had pushed away without meaning to, and bit by bit, Mary Thompson resurfaced. The woman I was before marriage, before betrayal, before heartbreak. Strong, capable, independent. One afternoon, I was at the grocery store picking out flowers when I saw someone familiar. Margaret, my entire body froze. She was standing alone by the vegetables. Her hair was shorter. She was better dressed. She looked different. For a moment, I thought about turning around and leaving, avoiding the confrontation. But then something inside me whispered, "No, not anymore." I walked toward her. My heart hammered in my chest. "Margaret," I said. She turned. When she saw me, her face drained of color. "Mary, I need to talk to you," I said firmly. "I don't think that's a good idea," she whispered. "I'm not asking," I said. "I'm telling you." She looked around nervously. People were glancing at us. "There's a coffee shop 2 blocks away," she said quietly. "Meet me there in 10 minutes." I left without responding. 10 minutes later, I was seated at a small table. I ordered a black coffee. My hands trembled slightly, but I controlled myself. Margaret entered, spotted me, and slowly walked over. She sat down across from me. For a moment, neither of us spoke. I finally broke the silence. "Why did you do it, Margaret?" She stared at her hands. "Mary, don't give me excuses, just tell me the truth. Why did you destroy my marriage?" She inhaled deeply. When she looked up, her eyes were full of tears. "Because I was alone, because I was scared." Scared of what? Of growing old by myself, of having no one. When my husband died, I felt invisible. And then I saw Robert. I saw the way he treated you. The way he cared for your family, and I wanted that. I wanted it for myself. "So it wasn't love," I said quietly. "It was fear, fear of being alone." "Maybe at first," she whispered. "But then I did fall in love with him." "And does that justify what you did?" I asked. "Does that justify lying to me, sitting at my table, smiling in my face while you were betraying me?" Margaret's tears spilled over. "No," she said shakily. "Nothing justifies it, nothing." Margaret kept wiping her eyes. "I know what I did was wrong, very wrong, and if I could go back in time—" "You can't," I cut her off firmly. "What's done is done. My marriage is gone. My family is fractured. And all of it because you chose selfishness." She sobbed quietly. I know, and I'm sorry. Every single day I hate myself for what I did." I stared at her, searching her face for something, true remorse, guilt, truth. And yes, it was there. But at this point, none of it mattered anymore. "Lucy told me everything," I said. "She told me you started it, that you planned it, that you deliberately went after Robert." Margaret lowered her face into her hands. "Yes, it's true, it's all true. And I know Robert has been giving you money," I continued. "Money that belonged to both of us, money from our family." "Mary, I never asked him for—" "I don't care whether you asked or not," I said sharply. "You took it, and you knew exactly where it came from." "You're right," she whispered brokenly. "You're absolutely right. And I also know you were planning to run away, leave the country, like you could escape the damage you caused." Margaret looked up slowly. She wiped her cheeks. "We're not leaving anymore." I froze. That wasn't the answer I expected. "What?" "We're not going to Italy," she said. "Robert, he canceled everything." "Why?" I asked cautiously. "Because David confronted him." She swallowed hard. "He told Robert that if he left, he would lose his son, his grandchildren, his entire family, and Robert couldn't do it." Something twisted in my chest. I didn't know if it was relief or sorrow. Maybe both. "So you're staying?" I asked quietly. "Yes," she said, "but things aren't good between us." "What do you mean?" She exhaled shakily. "Robert is remorseful. Not about choosing me, but about how it happened. About hurting you, about disappointing David, about tearing apart the family." "Well," I said coldly, "he should have thought about that before betraying all of us." I've told him the same thing, she whispered. But he isn't the same man anymore. He doesn't talk to me the way he used to. He doesn't look at me the same. It's like he's realizing everything he destroyed. I remained quiet, absorbing her words. And you? I finally asked. Do you feel remorse? She nodded, tears streaming. Yes, not about loving Robert, but about the way it happened, about hurting you, about hurting Lucy, about breaking so much because I was selfish. Does Lucy talk to you? I asked. Margaret shook her head. No, she hasn't spoken to me in 3 months. She sent me a message saying she needed time, that she couldn't stand to see me, that every time she looked at me she felt ashamed. For a brief moment, I saw something human in her, a mother grieving the loss of her daughter's trust. And as much as I hated it, I felt a flicker of pity. But pity doesn't erase betrayal. Do you know what hurts me the most, Margaret? I asked. What? She whispered. It's not that Robert fell in love with another woman. The heart is unpredictable. What hurts the most is that both of you lied, that you looked me in the eyes and deceived me, that you made me think I was imagining things, that you stole my right to decide how to move forward with my life. Margaret closed her eyes. You're right, and I have no excuse. I took a sip of my coffee. It was cold, bitter, but I didn't care. Does Robert know you're here? I asked. No, she replied. He barely leaves the apartment. He stays inside, working, thinking. And you? I'm trying to move on, she whispered. But it's hard. I've lost Lucy, I lost the family's respect, I lost everything. No one forced you to lose it, I reminded her. You chose it. I know, she said, choking up. Silence settled between us again. The sound of cups clinking and soft chatter filled the cafe, but at our table, everything felt still. Finally, I spoke. Margaret, the reason I asked you to meet me is because I need to say something. She looked up nervously. What is it? I forgive you. She stared at me in disbelief. What? I forgive you, I repeated. Not for you but for me. Because carrying this rage is destroying me from the inside, and I refuse to let it keep doing that. She covered her mouth as fresh tears fell. Mary, I don't need your gratitude, I said firmly. And forgiveness doesn't mean I think what you did was acceptable. It doesn't mean we're friends. It doesn't mean I'll forget. It means I'm letting go for my own peace. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you, Mary. There's something else, I said. She stiffened. What? The money Robert gave you our money, I want it back. Margaret's face went pale. Mary, I already spent so much of it, the apartment, the car. I don't care, I cut her off. Sell everything if you have to. That money belongs to me and I'm taking it back. She swallowed hard. Okay, you're right, I'll talk to Robert, we'll figure something out. You have 2 months, I said firmly. If I don't have every dollar back, I will get a lawyer. I will make this entire story public. And believe me, Margaret, you do not want that. She shook her head quickly. No, I don't. I promise you'll have your money. I stood up and placed $5 on the table. Before I go, I said, pausing, one last thing. She looked up nervously. What is it? Take care of Robert. Because after everything you ruined to get him, after everything you sacrificed, it would be a shame for you to realize he wasn't worth it. And with that, I walked out of the cafe. Outside, the sky was painted orange and pink. The sun was dipping low, and as I walked down the sidewalk, something settled in my chest. Peace. Not full peace, not yet, but the beginning of it. The following days felt lighter. I no longer wondered what Robert was doing, or who he was with, or whether he was happy. I didn't care anymore. My focus was me, my healing, my future. One afternoon, David came over with the kids, Sebastian and little Sophia. Their laughter filled the house like sunlight. Mom, David said as we sat in the kitchen with coffee, you look different. How? I asked. Calmer, more like yourself. I smiled softly. I feel more like me than I have in a long time. I'm glad, Mom, he said. Really? How's your father? I asked, not out of love, but because David deserved someone to talk to, he sighed. Not good, he's sad, remorseful. He says he wants to talk to you. And what did you tell him? That he has to respect your time, and that if you ever want to talk, you'll reach out, not him. Thank you, son. Mom, David hesitated. Do you think you'll ever forgive him? I took a breath. I don't know, David. Maybe someday, maybe never. And that's okay. I don't need to forgive him to move forward. David nodded softly. You're stronger than you think, Mom. I'm not strong, I said. I'm just surviving. Surviving takes strength, he replied. That night after they left, I sat in my garden. My roses, sunflowers, and daisies swayed in the breeze. Flowers I planted weeks ago, flowers I hadn't expected to bloom. But they did, and I realized something. I was blooming too, slowly but surely. A few days later, my phone rang. An unknown number, I answered cautiously. Hello, Mary, it's Robert. A chill ran through me, his voice familiar and foreign all at once. What do you want? I asked, my tone cold. I need to talk to you, please. We have nothing to talk about. Yes, we do. It's about the money. Margaret told me you saw her, that you asked for it back. That's right, I said calmly. It's mine. I know, and you're right, I'm going to return every dollar. I blinked. That was not what I expected. When, in 2 weeks, he said, I'm selling some things, I'll transfer everything to your account. Fine, there was a heavy silence. Mary, can we meet, just once, I need to say some things. No, I said immediately. Please. Just a few minutes. Robert, I don't want to hear anything you have to say, send the money, and after that, leave me alone. And I hung up. My hands shook slightly, but inside I felt something powerful. Pride. Because for the first time in a long time, I chose myself. 2 weeks later, I received a bank transfer. It was every dollar Robert had taken from me, down to the last cent. Along with the deposit came a short message that popped up on my phone. Mary, here is the money. I'm sorry for everything I put you through. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I want you to know I never meant to hurt you. You were a good wife, a good woman, and I was a fool for not valuing you. I hope you find happiness. Truly, Robert. I read it 3 times before deleting it, not out of anger, but because I no longer needed it. I didn't need his guilt to heal. I didn't need his words to feel whole. I already knew my worth, and that was enough. As I share this, I wonder where you're listening from. Drop the name of your city in the comments. It had been 1 full year since the day I walked into my bedroom and found Robert packing his suitcases with Margaret. And somehow, in that year, my entire world had turned upside down in the best way. I was no longer the Mary who waited for her husband with hot coffee every morning. I was no longer the Mary who tried to please everyone. I had become the Mary who finally lived for herself. I went back to work for the first time since before my marriage. I got a job at a small bookstore downtown. The paycheck didn't matter. What mattered was purpose, something I hadn't felt in years. My days became full again. Dance class on Tuesdays and Thursdays, painting on Saturdays, coffee with my friends on Sundays. Grandkids whenever David brought them over. It wasn't a flashy life, but it was mine, and that made it beautiful. One Thursday afternoon, after dance class, I stood at the bus stop when I noticed someone crossing the street. Robert. He walked slowly, shoulders hunched, hands in his pockets. His face was tired, lined with age, far older than I remembered. He looked as if life had weighed heavily on him. I froze for a moment, unsure whether to hide or stay put. In the end, I stayed. He looked up and saw me. He stopped instantly. For a moment, we both just stared. Then he walked toward me. Mary, he said, his voice gravelly. Robert, I answered, keeping my tone neutral. How are you? Fine. And you? He hesitated. Not very well. I didn't respond, I simply waited. You look different, he said. You look good, happy. Thank you. Are you still living in the house? Yes, that's good. That house was always more yours than mine. A silence settled between us, filled only by cars passing on the street. Mary, I want to tell you something. His voice shook. I made the biggest mistake of my life when I left you. I know that now. I feel it every morning when I wake up and every night when I go to sleep. Losing you was losing everything. His words hung in the air, but they no longer touched me the way they once would have. The wounds they could have reopened had long since healed. And Margaret? I asked, Robert's expression twisted with pain. Margaret and I were not together anymore. That surprised me. What happened? What had to happen? He said bitterly. When you build something out of lies and betrayal, it doesn't last. It can't. When did you break up? 3 months ago. We started arguing about everything. She said I wasn't the same man anymore, that I'd changed, that I didn't look at her the way I used to. And was she right? He nodded slowly. Yes, because every time I looked at her, all I saw was what I had lost by choosing her. I saw your face, I saw David, I saw my family gone. So you left her? No, he said quietly. She left me. A part of me almost laughed, but I held it in. She left you? Yes, she said she was tired of living with a ghost, tired of competing with your memory. She said she deserved someone who truly loved her. And did you love her? I asked. He was silent for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely audible. I thought I did, but now I know it wasn't love. It was escape, excitement, the ego of being wanted. But it wasn't love. Real love, that was what I had with you, and I was too blind to appreciate it. I didn't know what to say. Part of me felt a strange satisfaction. Another part felt sadness for the man he once was. Where do you live now? I asked. In a small apartment across town, he said. Alone, very alone. And work. I lost clients, he admitted. When people found out what I'd done, many didn't trust me anymore. They said if I could betray my own wife, how could they trust me with their finances? There was a painful kind of poetry in that. Karma doesn't rush, but it never forgets. I'm sorry, I told him honestly. Not because I wanted him to suffer, but because seeing someone you once loved turn into a broken shell of themselves will always sting, no matter how much time has passed. Don't be sorry, he said. I deserve it, all of it. The bus approached. I could hear it braking. I have to go, I said. Mary, wait, his voice cracked. Do you think you could ever forgive me? I looked into eyes I once knew by heart. I already forgave you, Robert. You did, he whispered. Yes, months ago, not for you, for me. I couldn't carry that hatred any longer. He swallowed hard. Then do you think we could try again? Start over? Ah. The question I used to dream of hearing. But dreams change. No, Robert, we can't. Why not? I love you, Mary, I still love you. Maybe you do, I said softly. Or maybe you just miss the comfort we had. But it doesn't matter. I've moved on, I'm not going backward. Mary, please. Robert, I interrupted firmly. Listen carefully, I wish you peace. I hope you grow, I hope you learn, but none of that will happen with me. The bus stopped beside us. I stepped on. Take care, Robert. I sat by the window as the bus pulled away. Robert stood there on the sidewalk alone, small, defeated, watching me leave. And as the city blurred past the glass, I felt an unexpected mixture of emotions. Sadness for who he used to be, relief that he was no longer my burden, and peace, deep, steady peace. Because finally that chapter was closed. When I got home, I called David. Mom, are you okay? He asked immediately. Yes, son, I said, smiling softly. I'm more than okay. I told him everything, every detail. And how do you feel? He asked. Free, I whispered. For the first time in years, I feel completely free. I'm proud of you, Mom, he said. You handled all of this with grace, with dignity. You're an example to me. My eyes filled with tears. Thank you, son, those words mean more than you know. That night I slept deeply. No nightmares, no heaviness, just peace. Months passed quietly, beautifully. My life settled into a rhythm I cherished. Until one day, 6 months after seeing Robert at the bus stop, I received a call from David. Mom, he said seriously, I need to tell you something. My heart clenched. What happened? It's about Dad. A knot formed in my stomach. Is he okay? Physically, yes, but emotionally, he's really bad. I visited him recently. Mom, his apartment is awful. He barely eats. He's alone. He looks destroyed. I swallowed hard. Why are you telling me this? Because I thought you should know. I'm not asking you to do anything. I just thought you should know. Are you helping him? I asked gently. I'm trying. I bring food. I talk to him. But it's hard, Mom. It's hard seeing him like that. I know, son, I whispered. I'm sorry. You don't have to be sorry, he said. He put himself there. That night I lay awake thinking, not in longing, not in pain, but in compassion for a man who had destroyed his own life. The next morning I did something I never imagined I would do. I called Robert. Mary, he answered, surprised. Hello, Robert, I said. David told me you're not doing well. There was a long silence. I'm surviving, he finally said. Have you eaten today? I asked. Not really, I haven't had much of an appetite. I'm bringing you food, I said gently. I'll cook something and drop it off at your apartment. And for the first time in a very long time, I heard Robert's voice soften. You don't have to do that, Mary. I know, I told him, but I'm going to anyway. I hung up before he could argue. That morning, I cooked like I hadn't cooked in months. Rice, stewed chicken, beans, cornbread, every dish Robert always loved. I didn't do it out of affection. I did it out of humanity. Because no matter what had happened, he was still my son's father, and I couldn't stand by and watch him fall apart like that. When I reached his apartment, I knocked. Robert opened the door, and the sight of him broke something inside me. He was thinner, his face drained of color, deep shadows under his eyes. His clothes hung loosely on him. Behind him, the apartment looked empty, dark, bare, lifeless. Mary, he said, his voice cracked. I brought you food, I said quietly. I stepped inside and carried everything straight to the kitchen. There was almost nothing in there, one chair. One tiny table, an empty fridge, no warmth, no life. Sit, I told him. I served him a plate and sat across from him. He began to eat slowly, silently. I just watched. When he finished, he looked up with tears in his eyes. Thank you, you're welcome. Why did you do this after everything I've done to you? Because even though I don't love you anymore, and even though I don't want you back, I'm still capable of compassion. I'm still human. Robert's tears spilled onto his cheeks, silent, heavy tears. I've lost everything, Mary, he whispered. Everything, my family, my job, my dignity, my happiness. And it's my fault. All of it is my fault. Yes, I said honestly. It is your fault, but you can learn from it, you can grow, you can choose to be better. Do you think I can ever get back what I lost? He asked. I don't know, I said softly. That depends on you, on the choices you make from here. I stood up and placed the rest of the food in the fridge. There's enough here for several days. Eat properly, take care of yourself. And get help, Robert. Go to therapy, talk to someone. You can't keep living like this. Will you come back? He asked, almost pleading. No, I said gently but firmly. This is all I can do, the rest is up to you. I walked toward the door. Mary, he called. I turned. Thank you for this, for everything, for being a better person than I ever was. I nodded and left. As I drove home, I thought about everything, about how karma had settled every debt. Robert lost his family, his reputation, his peace. Margaret lost her daughter, her dignity, and the man she gambled everything for. None of it was revenge. I had never planned any of this. It was life balancing itself out. And somehow, through all that pain, I had come out stronger, wiser, more myself. That night I sat in my garden. The flowers I had planted were in full bloom, bright, alive, dancing softly in the breeze, just like me. And for the first time in years, a real, complete smile spread across my face. I had survived. Not only survived, I had blossomed. Looking up at the stars, I realized my story no longer ended in betrayal. It ended in peace, in healing, in a new beginning. And that was more than many people ever find. He once called me crazy for suspecting him. Years later, I saw that same emptiness in his eyes when he lived alone in that hollow apartment. Life always collects its debts. Have you ever seen karma work in your own life? Share your story in the comments. 3 years have passed since the day Robert left my bedroom with Margaret. 3 years that feel like another lifetime. Today, at 61, I can say with complete certainty, I am happier now than I have ever been. It's not loud happiness. Not the happiness of big moments or great achievements. It's a quiet, steady happiness. The happiness of knowing myself, respecting myself, loving myself. Every morning I wake up in my home, the same house I once shared with Robert, but one that now belongs entirely to me. I've been redecorating it slowly. The wedding photos are gone. In their place are paintings I made myself, pictures of my grandchildren, my sisters, my friends, and places I've visited. Yes, I've traveled. Something Robert always said we couldn't afford. Florida, California, Maine. Sometimes alone, sometimes with my sisters, sometimes with friends. Every trip showed me a part of myself I had forgotten. The bookstore where I work has become my sanctuary. I spend my days surrounded by stories and people who love stories. I recommend books. I run book clubs. I listen to the lives of strangers. And when a woman comes in with that wounded look I know too well, I make her a cup of tea and sit with her, because I know what it feels like to be broken. But I also know that broken doesn't mean finished. Sebastian is 8 now. Little Sophia is 6. And recently, David and Lucy had another baby, a girl. They named her Mary. When David told me, I cried. He hugged me and said, "Mom, we want her to have your name. You're the example we want her to follow, strong, brave, resilient." No words can describe that feeling. David and I are closer than ever. He calls me every day, visits often. And Lucy has become the daughter I never had. She's healing too slowly but sincerely. She forgave her mother, though their relationship will never be the same. "Mrs. Mary," she once told me, "you taught me that forgiving doesn't mean forgetting. And setting boundaries isn't being cruel, it's loving yourself." Margaret now lives in Chicago alone, small apartment, office job. Lucy sees her once or twice a year. She's surviving but not happy. I didn't feel joy hearing that. Only sadness. Sadness for a woman who traded everything for so little. As for Robert, he still lives in that same apartment. His business has recovered a bit. Not fully, but enough to survive. David visits him sometimes. Says he's going to therapy, that he's trying to be better. "Is he alone?" I once asked. "Yes, Mom," David said. "He's alone. I think he finally understands he needs to be." I haven't seen Robert since the day I brought him food. And that's okay. Sometimes I wonder if he thinks of me, if he regrets, if he imagines what life could have been like. But those thoughts pass quickly. His life is no longer my burden. And mine is beautiful. This morning I woke early. Brewed my strong black coffee. Sat in my garden as the sun rose, coloring the sky in pink and orange. The flowers I planted 3 years ago are tall now, strong, blooming, resilient. And I thought about everything I've learned. That self-love isn't selfish, it's survival. That forgiving isn't forgetting, it's releasing. That you can love someone for 30 years and still find the strength to let them go. That betrayal speaks more about the betrayer than the betrayed. That karma is real. That it's never too late to start again. That happiness doesn't come from someone beside you, it comes from peace within you. My life is full of small joys now. My grandchildren's hugs, my friends' laughter. The smell of new books. Hot chocolate on cold evenings. The peaceful silence of my home. Soul music while I cook, songs that remind me I have lived, I have loved, I have lost, and yet I am still here. Sometimes, I remember the Mary who stood in her doorway watching her world collapse, and I wish I could hug her. Tell her she will survive, that the pain will be unbearable but temporary. That life on the other side is brighter than she ever imagined. And not only that, but she would rise again, she would heal, she would bloom in ways she never imagined. The woman waiting for her on the other side of all that pain wasn't weaker. She was stronger, wiser, more whole than she had ever been. Last week, something happened that made me smile in a way I hadn't smiled in a long time. I was at the bookstore, arranging a new stack of books, when a woman walked in, maybe 55 years old. Sad eyes. Shoulders lowered as if carrying an invisible weight. "Excuse me," she said softly, her voice trembling. "Do you have any books about how to get over a betrayal?" I looked directly into her eyes, and for a moment I saw myself, 3 years ago, standing there in her place. "Yes," I said gently. "I have several, but before I show them to you, would you like a coffee?" She blinked, surprised. "If it's not too much trouble." "It's not trouble at all." I made 2 cups of coffee, and we sat down in the little reading corner tucked between the fiction shelves. For an hour she told me her story. Her husband had betrayed her with her best friend. 2 years. She had only found out recently. It was my story with different names, but the same wounds. By the time she finished, tears were streaming down her face. "I don't know how I'm supposed to move on," she sobbed. "I feel like I'm dying inside, like my life is over." I took her hand. "Your life isn't over," I told her softly. "I know that because I went through the same thing, and look at me, I'm here, I'm okay, I'm happy." "Really, do you truly get over something like this?" "Yes," I said. "It won't be easy, it won't be quick, but yes, you can. If I could, trust me, you can too." I told her my story, not every detail, but enough so she would know that I wasn't just trying to comfort her. I understood her pain. "What do I do now?" she whispered. "You let yourself feel. Cry as long as you need to. Be angry if you need to. But when the pain starts to soften, you begin looking for yourself again. The version of you that existed before him, and the version who will continue to exist long after him." And forgiveness. How do I forgive something like that? You forgive when you're ready, not before, and you don't do it for him, you forgive for yourself. Because resentment is poison, it hurts you, not him. But forgiving doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean going back, it just means letting go of the weight. She wiped her cheeks. Thank you, really. Thank you for listening, for giving me hope. That's what women are for, I told her. To hold each other up. When she left, I sat there thinking about our conversation. That's when I realized something powerful. My pain had not been useless. Everything I endured, every wound, every tear, had shaped me into someone who could now lift others. Someone who could be a light where someone else saw only darkness. And that made all of it make sense. Later that afternoon, I sat at my desk with my diary open. I looked out the window. The sun was dipping low, coloring the sky with warm, soft shades. My black coffee, sprinkled with cinnamon, sat beside me, filling the air with comfort. Birds sang in the garden. A gentle breeze moved through the flowers. And in that moment, I felt something deep and profound: gratitude. Gratitude for surviving, for learning, for becoming the woman I am today. I don't know what the future holds. I don't know if I'll ever fall in love again. I don't know if I'll ever trust like that again. And that's okay, because I learned that I don't need all the answers. I only need peace. And peace is exactly what fills me now. If someone asked me, Mary, was all that pain worth it? I would answer, the pain itself is never worth it. But what I learned from it, yes, that was worth everything. Because that pain taught me my worth. It taught me to set boundaries. It taught me I could stand alone without being lonely. It taught me that someone else's betrayal says nothing about my value. And it taught me that I can rise again and again, no matter how many times life knocks me down. To the women listening to my story, to the women living through a similar storm right now, I want to tell you something with all my heart. I know it hurts. I know you feel like your world has ended. Like you'll never smile again. Like trust is gone forever. But I promise you this, you will be happy again, you will trust again, you will love again. But first, you must love yourself. You must remember that you are worthy, that you are enough. That you deserve respect, loyalty, and true love. And if someone cannot give you that, if someone chooses to betray, deceive, or hurt you, that person does not deserve you. Period. It doesn't matter how many years you spent together. It doesn't matter how much you invested. It doesn't matter how much you love him. If he doesn't value you, let him go. I know it's hard. I know because I lived it too. But on the other side of that heartbreak, beyond the tears, beyond the betrayal, there is a life waiting for you. A better life. A life where you are the main character. A life where you choose. A life where you matter. And that life is beautiful. So don't give up. Don't let the pain destroy you. Use it. Learn from it, grow through it. And when you're healed, share your story. Because your story might be the lifeline another woman needs. Today, at 61 years old, I am happy. I am peaceful, I am whole. Not because I found a new man, but because I found myself. And I realized I was complete all along. I simply needed to remember it. And if my story has helped even one woman open her eyes, if it has given strength to even one woman to stand back up, if it has shown even one woman that yes, she can, then everything, absolutely everything, I went through was worth it. Thank you for listening until the end. Thank you for giving me the honor of sharing my journey with you. Remember this, you are stronger than you think, you are more valuable than you believe, and you deserve happiness always. With all my heart, Mary Thompson, thank you for listening until the end. If this story touched your heart, subscribe and tap the bell icon so you don't miss more stories of women who turned pain into wisdom. Every day, one woman. One story, one life lesson. Share this story with someone you love. Sometimes a story like this can change someone's entire day. God bless you, and until next time.